is a guy that's on the edge. Kind of that, the black sheep, just not quite accepted. But he found himself a compatriot in Kim Jong-un. And Kim Jong-un is not his father. Kim Jong-un has had experiences around the world. There are things he likes in the world that he probably wants to experience and can't because he's the leader of the Hermit Kingdom. Because people think of him as the abusive dictator. The head of a country that killed Otto Warmbier, right? That's still got to be taken care of at some point. There needs to be some kind of apology. There needs to be something done for that family. I don't know. Maybe that'll happen someday. Maybe it won't. But when it comes to North Korea, the only president since North Korea and South Korea had their truce, whatever, the war is still ongoing, whatever, it's now signed, right? Donald Trump did that. Barack Obama didn't do that. The guy who got the Nobel Peace Prize, Barack Obama, he didn't do that. Clinton didn't do that. Neither of the Bushes did that. Nixon didn't do that. Carter didn't do that. Ford didn't do that. Nobody did that. Nobody. But Donald Trump did. China trade deal. So we talk about China trade deal. Phase 1 was signed this week. Signed on the same day that Nancy Pelosi was signing articles of impeachment. Partisan, strictly partisan articles of impeachment that don't even contain a crime. Impeachment is for high crimes and misdemeanors. Not even a crime in the articles of impeachment. And now it's over at the Senate, and the Democrats are trying to say we want a fair trial in the Senate. They didn't give them a fair investigation during the articles and hearings for the impeachment, but they sure now want to get their fair share of a fair trial in the Senate. Screw you, Nancy! You don't get anything. And I hope Mitch McConnell has the guts and the tenacity. And Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz and Chuck Grassley. It's time for Republicans to stand up and fight fire with fire. And I put that on the Daily Drift today. If you're not going again to thedailydrift.com, you should be. www.thedailydrift.com. Make sure you're going there. I put a lot of effort into that, folks. Check it out. Are you going to call me a journalist? No, don't dare call me a journalist. I'm an agendist, no different than the left, but I'm on the right, trying to combat that yellow journalism that we see on a daily basis. But at least the stories I put up there are fact. I'm not the one writing them. I'm just reporting it. So it's there, www.thedailydrift.com. Check it out. Tweet it, Facebook it, parlay it. And if you're not on social media, doggone it, get out there and do your part in the social media war. Be a digital warrior like the rest of us. Get out there and do your fair share. Get in the trenches with the rest of us. On Twitter, you can reach me. Just go ahead and friend me. It's a good start. At Gary Daily Drift is my handle. Just look for me. Pretty easy guy to find on Twitter. Same handle on Parler, at Gary Daily Drift. On Facebook, you can find me, Gary Wellings. Top of my page will be The Daily Drift. Pretty easy to find. Get out there. But social media is that. I know a lot of people don't want to admit they do social media. A lot of people don't want to be involved with it and blah, 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 right? Because you do happen to get... I've got friends who are liberals. I've learned now not to go to their pages and not to try to pick fights with people. They come to my page quite often and pick fights with me, but it is what it is. I always end those arguments, love your brother, love your sister, whatever. You don't have to get angry. You don't have to have your holidays and your holiday meals and your family spoiled by politics. You really don't. Just use your head. But when you get stuck in an argument, use your head and use common sense arguments, man. You don't have to attack people. Donald Trump doesn't need defending. His actions alone, and those Republicans who have helped him along, not many of them, those Republicans that have helped him along, they don't need defending. We've got the best economy in decades. We've got wages going up. That hasn't happened in a decade. We have the best employment and the lowest unemployment for Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, female Americans than we've had in decades. Asian Americans. You've been seeing some of the polling that goes on. And normally I don't put a lot of faith in the polls. The polls were wrong with the 2016 election. The polls are wrong today, most of them. You can look at the Real Clear at Politics average poll and see what's going on there. But for the most part, I don't put faith in polls. But one thing I do put faith in is the polling that is showing Black Americans, African Americans, are turning the page on the Democrat Party. You've heard of the walkaway movement. You'll see it all over Twitter now. You're starting to see it on Facebook. You'll certainly see it on Gab and Parler. A lot of African Americans are finally realizing, because Donald Trump said it in the 2016 election, what have you got to lose? Democrats have been promising you stuff for 30, 40 years, and they haven't delivered anything. What have you got to lose? And Republicans, as a rule, don't get more than 8%, maybe, of the black vote on any. Allegedly, and the polling is starting to be consistent across many different polls, that African American support for Donald Trump is now getting into the 30% range. They've said for years that if 20% of the black vote went to Republicans, the Democrats are finished. Now, does that make sense to you? Does that maybe make a little bit of sense to you when you look at how desperate the Democrats have become to bring new voters into this country? That in California and New York, two of the states with the most new immigrants, refugees, legal aliens, illegal aliens, are now giving driver's license to these people. They're not citizens. They're not supposed to be voting, but let me assure you of something, and you should know this. If you've got a driver's license, you're going to be able to vote. There's very little that can be done to stop you. Your vote will be tallied, and before it's ever caught or fixed or anyone finds out about it, your vote will already have been cast, and it'll probably have an effect on the election. Hillary Clinton likes to go and say, oh, I won the popular vote in 2016 by 5 million or 4.5 million, whatever it was. Between the dead voters, who always vote Democrat, and the illegal voters and the fraudulent voters, I'm thinking there was 4 to 5 million fraudulent votes in this country. Don't you? It makes sense. When you look at the big picture, that's what makes sense. Democrats stand for open borders. Why? So they can bring in new voters. Illegal aliens are going to vote. Let's give them stuff. Let's give them stuff. Give them benefits. Let's give them Social Security. Let's get them Medicare. Free Medicare. Like you and I who were born here, some of us have worked, some people haven't. Right? There's a fair share of indigenous Americans who were born here who may not work, don't have the great work ethic either. Now, the work ethic for a lot of Americans has dropped over the generations just because, you know what? People who come here new appreciate it more. They work harder. And you wonder why so many immigrants seem to own stores and shops and donut shops and gas stations and everything else. Well, they come with whatever. They save their money. They buy it as a family. They're working harder than the average American who's been here for 3 or 4 generations. There's no doubt. I think we can each look at our own kids. If you're a 5th or 6th generation American, you look at your kids today and they're nowhere near as worked as hard as you did at your age or your grandparents worked at their age. Right? But you got to look at what the Democrats are doing on a daily basis. And what the mainstream media, who is bought and paid, I don't quite understand. Do the liberals and the Democrats own the media, or does the media own the liberals and the Democrats? I haven't quite figured that one out yet. But I think it doesn't really matter in the end, because they're on the same team, and what they're pushing is what's going to kill America. And I think those of us who are hardworking, are paying our taxes, are trying to make our lives better and our children's lives better and our grandchildren's lives better, we see it. We're not as dumb as the media seems to think we are and as the Democrats seem to think we are, because you know what? 63 million Americans voted for Donald Trump in 2016, despite the fact that he was rude, crude, and socially obnoxious, as so many people like to say. I just call him blunt. truthful. That's what I call them. Okay, so doggone it, I just looked down at the time on the meter here and see that I've been on my soapbox for 25 minutes, so not always a good thing. And but hey, I had to get off my chest. I kind of miss not doing the podcast regularly. I'm going to try and get back to doing the weekly show. It's been tough. Like I said, I've been working on the studio for a while. I had things set up in here, and of course, I've done a couple of podcasts. We've had a couple of great shows. We had Ash Hampton on a couple times, and we had 8th congressional candidate Alan Hoover on. Great podcast. You can look that up at thedailydrift.com. Just click on the Common Sense Radio tab up in the corner, and you'll see all the shows that we've got in the can. But make sure you check that one out. That's a good shot. I think Alan Hoover is probably one of our better chances of beating Alyssa Slotkin here in the 8th District, which is my district now. I used to have Tim Walberg as my congressman, and I no longer do. But we're going to get Tim back on the show, too. He's already said he would come back on, so we'll have to square away that. I've got some more work to do on the studio. Like I said, I spent about an hour before I began recording this podcast trying to get my systems squared away here, but it's just not right. Just not right. I should have spent more time learning the behind-the-scenes stuff after 8 years of doing this live on Saturdays on the radio, but it is what it is. So I just went to thedailydrift.com, and again, www.thedailydrift.com, news aggregate. Check it out and spread it around because, like I said, I've been doing it since, I think in one form or another, since 2009, but this version since about 2011 when I first got into radio. And then I went to the Daily Drift myself right now and realized, I didn't upload my Friday edition until, well, just a few minutes ago. So there you go. And I'll have the Saturday edition up by the end of the night or first thing in the morning as well. So, but that goes back all the way to 2011. You can check out, if you want to go back and check out the elections any of those years, you can see it. And I've got the radio archives that go all the way back to 2011 as well. So we've been at it a while. When I think about it, I've been doing this quite some time, and it's not easy. So one of the things that we had on was Chuck Schumer, Senator Schumer playing politics on thedailydrift.com. And he's working with Mitch McConnell, not really working with Mitch, but working against Mitch McConnell and the Republicans. Now, let's talk about how the impeachment has gone over. So what you've seen, and this is part of the reason Nancy Pelosi was trying to hold up those articles for impeachment after saying it so fast, we need to get it done. And you need to ask yourself, they were in such a rush to get this done. Why? Well, because it's a scam. This is playing politics. There's nothing here to be seen. They've been trying to destroy Donald Trump since before he got elected because they knew him coming in. He was a doer. He was a go-getter. This is a guy who's not part of their elite club there in Washington, D.C., because you know what? They've got something good going on in D.C. They really do. You want to make a good analogy of it. What happens in Washington, D.C. with that political ruling class is they're becoming tyrants in and of themselves. You ever see the Hunger Games? You know the Hunger Games? There's 3 of them, I think, now. But they talk about the Capitol, right? All the other parts of the the country serve the capital. These people slave. We all become their slaves. And that's what they're slowly pushing us into. It's no different than the Hunger Games. At some point, they're going to take away all our guns, and they're going to make us fight amongst each other and do things to cow us down because they don't want us having the power. When they go after Donald Trump to impeach him and try to get rid of him, they're not trying to get rid of Donald Trump. They're trying to get rid of us. They're mad that we said we don't want Hillary Clinton. We don't want a Bush. They're mad. They expected that George Bush's brother would become the next president or the next contender with Hillary Clinton. They wanted Hillary Clinton to win or a Bush to win. Well, we threw the apple cart upside down by electing Trump. They're mad at you. They're not mad at Donald Trump. They were never mad at him before he ran for office.